Welcome to the Boneyard podcast. Matt Mosley here with Coach Cory Campbell, and Wildcats come off a 38-15 victory over North Garland. And Coach, everybody was home pretty early the other night, even despite all the delays, because the game ended with a few minutes left in the third quarter. Now, I like the pageantry of a halftime, but also when there are delays like that, the abbreviated quick halftime is kind of nice. That was a 12-minute halftime period. You've now, even dating back to the spring game, you've had weather affect pretty much everything you've been involved with. Maybe you're looking forward to our first Friday night without some weather delays as the Wildcats get to take on Flower Mound. The more you go through this, do you have better ideas of how to handle your players and kind of keep everybody focused through this?
Yeah, I think so. With anything, you do it more often. You get a little bit more accustomed to, the procedures and what goes on. I think, I met with their AD and their head football coach during the first delay. And we just visited about, procedures going forward. And one of the things we had talked about, because it was like an hour and a half, that we were going to have, a really abbreviated halftime. Neither team would go to the locker room. Obviously, the bands weren't given the opportunity to play. And shout out to our band and Aaron Singleton. They didn't have to stay. They really wanted to support us. We want to support them. And just a big shout out to them. And then, we hit the second delay, and we had kind of talked about what that was going to look like, because we felt like weather was coming in again the second time, and they went ahead and called the game like you'd mentioned in the third quarter.
All right, the cheerleaders and the bellboys and everybody were on hand, and you looked over at North Garland, and almost everybody had headed home except the PA man, who we might have talked to Chip about this. The PA man for North Garland, or maybe it's Garland Independent School District over at Williams Stadium, does some play-by-play during the game. I don't know if you noticed that. He was kind of describing things as plays would unfold. So maybe something I don't think it's usually allowed, except if you're like in Quinlan or some of the places where I grew up. But I thought that was an interesting way. Now, you wanted to set the tone early on. You had to, and of course, then you had a fairly quick delay. But the first thing, Franklin's out there for Christian. We'll deal with some of the injuries because you are going to get some people back. But again, you've shown some of the depth, some of your young players that are getting to play. Franklin, it's nice to have a back of that quality that can step in and start a game for you and get Trey. Big play on that first drive. What were you kind of trying to establish early on, and even on that touchdown? What were Chuck and Trey able to see there?
Yeah, I think what we talked to the kids about was just we wanted to start fast. We kind of got a look on first down that we liked, and then we went to Trey on a little sting concept over the middle that we've been working on all week. And, the kids executed, give them credit, and we were able to score quick on that first drive and go up 7-0. And that's was our mantra, in pregame and throughout the week, just starting fast.
Trey spotted me coming in to tape the show tonight and told me to take it easy on him. And so it's good. I think that we're getting some positive words on Trey early. But the kids watch, and so they're familiar with what we do, and sometimes they'll, encourage me to mention them. But when you score a touchdown, it's pretty easy to get mentioned.
Yeah, no doubt. Trey's been in our program now for 4 years. It's fun. It's exciting to see him have success. I think you mentioned a while ago, the number of kids. I believe we had 7 starters not play in the game on Friday night. And, that's difficult. It makes it tough. But I think it's a credit to our staff. It's a credit to our strength conditioning coach, Judd. Does a great job, and we do have some depth, and that depth allows us to be in games like that and be able to succeed and obviously come away with a big win on Friday night. And it also allows young kids to get their feet wet, so to speak. So because it's going to happen again. We're hoping to get some of those guys back this week. We've got a couple of them coming back, and a couple of them won't. But, at the end of the day, we're getting some really good experience with some of our younger players.
Okay. A couple of guys coming back. Christian Rhodes, your star tailback, will be back in action. I guess there's a few players you're just kind of waiting, right, this week. Anybody else for sure that was able to practice today that you can tell us about that'll be on the field Friday night?
Christian, it looks like Christian's going to be back. He practiced today. Jeremiah Jones will be back. Brendan Gibbs, so getting those guys back will be big. We do have a couple guys that are still day-to-day in Mason Spangler and Holden Lane. And so those guys are kind of day-to-day right now and just going to kind of monitor their progress throughout the week. It'd be nice to get those guys back. We really haven't played, on either side of the ball with a full deck yet. And, that's part of the game. And so we'll just kind of wait and see what happens with those guys.
Okay, and then let's also say a word. Mason Bush has been one of your really tough luck players because he's a very accomplished offensive lineman, started for you as a sophomore last season, gets hurt, now out for the season with really devastating knee injury. And I just, we know his family and know a lot of these families, but that's he had really become an anchor for you on the offensive line. And I know that's tough for the kids, and I know everybody will want to keep him close to the program.
Yeah, you bet. Mason Bush is the heartbeat of our program. He's what Lake Highlands football is all about. Man, it breaks my heart that this happened. We're going to be there for him every step of the way. He was in meetings this morning with the offensive line at 8:00 in the morning, and he's super intelligent. And he's going to help some of our linemen. They're going to have to fill in some spots and almost like an assistant coach. And, at the end of the day, I guess the best compliment I could give you is, man, I hope my son grows up to be like Mason Bush because he's an unbelievable kid. We're going to continue to love him, and he's a part of us. And it's fun to see him every day.
Okay, from a offensive standpoint, you get it to 28-7 at the half, which is about probably where you wanted to, especially with the delays and everything you're doing. It's hard to get really in a rhythm. But Chuck and the receivers, with Spangler and some of the guys out that, are really quality players for you, you had to lean on some other players. Conrad Ince continues at 6'4". I mean, you've got some really nice size on the wideout. It's a good mixture of speed with some of those little inside receivers and then some of the big outside receivers. So what did you see the rest of the half in building that 28-7 lead from the offense? And did you kind of find that rhythm? Again, you can't really think about who you're playing against. They're out there. They're trying to score, and they did score a couple of times. What did you see from your offense the rest of the way in the first half?
Yeah, I think throwing the ball, we got the looks that we practiced all week. Give our offensive line credit. They gave us time most of the night. Conrad did have a really big night. We started out with just a simple choice route on the outside, and he set it down. The DB was way off. We threw it to him, and he makes some run after the catch. Junior Osarola had a big night as well. He's kind of one of those speed guys that you're referring to. We had a little sail route concept, and the corner comes off, and we throw him a vertical ball down the sidelines, and was able to, run after the catch and score. So those guys had really big nights, and Kobe and Trey, and so I think just credit to our guys with a few guys out, we were able to still make plays. I think Chuck's had almost 650 yards and 5 TDs in 2 games. And so, I'm excited about that part of it because, again, teams are going to have to think twice about loading the box because if we have the ability to throw the ball down the field like we have in the 2 previous weeks, then it's going to be a great complement for our offense.
All right, your defense certainly made some plays. I would say, that was number 8 for them. I believe it might be Hampton for North Garland. I mean, they did have some speed and completed a couple of one deep ball that got into the end zone that I can recall. You did a couple of good things. You were really trying to stand up down there on a couple of goal line stands. But overall, what did you think of the defense? And again, it was a game that was, for the most part, kind of out of hand. But I know part of the thing is, even in that kind of deal, I saw the other day a college coach just get all over his team They were up 33 at nothing at halftime. That was Nebraska, and he was just going off on his team at halftime. What did you think of the defense's performance?
Yeah, I think when you look at our defense, I think our defensive line was probably been the most consistent part of our team. With a little bit of experience returning with Condoba and Nicholson and Juan and a couple of those guys. It's given us the ability to have some consistency at inside linebacker. We haven't had as much consistency. I believe Chris Terrio and Beck all started the game. So you got a sophomore and junior starting the game, again, really early in their career, first and second starts for those guys. They played really well. So I was really excited to see that. And then in the secondary, I think one of the things that's frustrating right now for Paz and that side of the ball is just getting some continuity going, getting the same guys practicing, getting the same guys. We were out missing 2 corners week 1, got those corners back. And now we didn't have Holden, and so it's just we're ready to get kind of a nucleus of guys back on that side of the ball. I thought they played well. We did give up a couple big plays, and give them credit. They do have some good skill. Quarterback threw it pretty well, but all in all, I thought we held up well. And we'll talk a lot about Flower Mound, but it's going to be a huge challenge Friday night when we go over to their place.
All right, and Aiden made a play on the ball, didn't he, in that game, and had a pick back there. And again, you just you've had several Aidens over the years, and all of them have been very productive for you. But it's just interesting to watch, whether it be 5, 2. You get some of those single digit guys that extremely rangy, and again, going back even 2 or 3 years ago. You'll have had guys that really good ball skills, and I think that's kind of rare at the high school level, guys that truly know how to turn around and play the ball, and you've been fortunate enough to have a couple of those guys.
Yeah, I think a lot of it stems from and again, different people have different philosophies, but our sub-varsities, we ask them to play on both sides of the ball. And so, guys like Andre Williams that was the defensive MVP, and guys like Jeremiah Richards and guys like Aiden Webb and Hollywood and goes, when they were younger, they played on both sides of the ball. And so you're developing a skill set. When they get older, a lot of times they move to one side of the ball. But that skill set, it's been practiced and rehearsed enough where, and they have to have, don't get me wrong, they need have some ability and be able to run. But I think it kind of coincides with them making plays on defense, and then Hollywood this year, he's going to play a little bit of offense. So he'll play on both sides of the ball. So you kind of see that skill set there as well.
How do you manage some of the emotion from your players? One player in particular has had now a couple of those 15-yard penalties where makes a great play, then kind of undermines it a little bit with some of the stuff he does after that. Is that something you usually handle during the week? Do you address it? Do you try to address it immediately? I know you're someone that tries to keep a pretty calm, even keel during games, but how do you kind of get some, knowing that later in the season, that could really cost you if something like that happens?
I think it's a great question. I think it's a learned behavior that you're trying to correct. And so it needs to be a learned behavior. So when we talk about what do we do during the game, yes, we're not going to lose our cool on the sidelines because that's not going to make things better. But I like to talk about things like, if it was 38-31 and we really needed that. And so I think, young people need to understand how it can really affect the outcome. And so, and I think, we were talking about as a staff the other day, I think, I grabbed a couple kids coming off the field Friday night and tried to be positive and say, hey, really like that series. You really you really did some good things. Make sure we're trying to control our emotions, this stuff. And so I think you need to be positive when they do a good job, and then we need to correct it when they don't. And so we come back into the film room and we show them the video and what not to do. I think what the one you're referring to is when we had a big punt return and we returned it for a touchdown. And at the end of the day, before we got in the end zone, you see it all the time, holding the ball up, holding my hand up, all that stuff. Well, that was called taunting, right? And some crews call it, some crews don't, and they called it the other night, which was a good call. And so we got to come back in here and talk about, hey, if this happens again, we got to act like we've been there before. race into the end zone, find the official, run to the official, give him the ball,
Yeah.
head to the sidelines, and I'll be your biggest fan.
I would just simply tell them, don't act like the Jackrabbits. That's what I would do. That's, again,
I'll remember that one next time.
don't act like. But, well, and you get the victory, and that was good. And now Flower Mound, it's a good matchup. And I saw the Jaguars. Were they playing Berkner the other night or something? I saw Jaguars on the
that was
somebody else.
That was Mesquite Horn.
Okay.
Flower Mound has played Arlington Bowie in week 1, and I think Arlington Bowie's picked to win that district.
Mm-hmm.
Really good game. And then last week they played Wiley. And that game was like 38-6 before they called it. So they've got a great group. They do a good job of coaching. This isn't new for us playing Flower Mound. It's very unique because I guess I would compare them to the trendy Iowa State 3 safety shell. They play with 3 safeties, but they're going to be heavily involved in the run game, and so they do a great job of disguising of what they're going to be in, whether they're going to play man free or cover 3 or robber or Tampa or whatever it's going to be. And so, what a huge challenge it's going to be for our guys Friday night. To get comfortable with some of that, with some of those multiple looks, and to be able to recognize it. It causes us to simplify the game plan a little bit. Our kids go out and execute. We had a good day at practice today. Good video this morning of showing them our game plan and the install, and then showing them a little bit of Flower Mound, and then going out today and working against those multiple fronts and multiple looks.
All right. And looking at that team, Brian Basil's now been there for a good while in his 9th season there. You and I were talking, they've got a big-time offensive lineman that's, I think, getting a lot of looks. Drew Evers is his name.
Mm-hmm.
And then wide receiver named Carter Massey. They're pretty multiple with their receivers, but Massey will come into this game 6 catches, 181 yards, and 1 touchdown. So whether you bracket him or however you approach him, I would imagine that'll be a major focus of your game plan.
Yeah, no doubt. Week 1, he did not play, and so he had a big night the other night against Wiley. He's a returner that made a lot of plays last year. So, he's comfortable in that position. They do have 2 other wideouts that can hurt you. And so, with a really good quarterback and a good receiving core, it's going to be a huge challenge for a secondary that we talked about a while ago.
Mm-hmm.
That's not quite whole yet. And so we got a huge challenge in front of us offensively. They're going to do a lot of stuff. Similar to maybe a J.J. Pierce, where you're going to get a ton of formations, you're going to get a ton of motions, it's on a 3 or 4 days of practice. It's going to be difficult, but it's a great opponent for us to play, just like Forney was, just like North Garland was, and so we're excited about the opportunity. I think one of the things I talked to the kids about is when you go to Flower Mound, they're going to have about 7,000 people on there in the bleachers on their side. It is going to be a huge crowd over there on Friday night. And so very much different than what we saw last Friday in the weather delay. But it's going to be a great atmosphere, great opportunity. And, I think for us, we got to be us, but it's time. We need to win. We need to beat a good football team. That's what good football teams do. And that's what I talked to the kids about today. We're not going to go over there and be somebody we're not, but we need to go over there and execute, and it's going to be a huge challenge Friday night.
All right, let's before we move too quickly on to this week's game, let's look back at your offensive and defensive player of the week. Let's start out on the offensive side of the ball. Who was your offensive player of the week?
Yeah, our offensive player of the week was Conrad Ince, which you mentioned a while ago. He had 6 catches for 119. Big check at the line. I think it was our last touchdown. He caught a little zero fade in the corner pylon, something that, Coach Houck and those guys work on all the time. So it's good to see that executed. Pretty good coverage, great throw, and he just goes up and make a great catch. And so happy for him. Like I said, Junior played really well as well. when we talk about our receiving core. And so happy for Conrad. He's a kid that's put in a lot of time, a lot of work, played JV football last year. He had an over-the-shoulder catch on a vertical scheme, on an all-vert scheme. Had to really adjust to the ball. I think we were like 17-21, so I was happy to see us execute the game plan and not put the ball on the ground via the air.
And I'm sure his ties to the Aggies don't relate to the opportunities that he receives in this offense.
I think this summer when the state tournament, state championships in 7-on-7, I think his family was gracious enough to there are multiple venues that they have. I think they were happy to host us, so we're very appreciative of that. And so I think there's some Aggie ties. I've got a little myself.
I know you do. Yeah. Maybe we could do a Boneyard podcast from one of the Ensis residences down there or something at some point. Okay, on the defensive side of the ball, what do you have for us?
Yeah, so defensively, like I said, our defensive line played really solid. But I think what kind of jumped off the tape at us, which is exciting, is we're going to have co-defensive MVPs this week in Chris Terrio and Beckett Hall. They both played inside linebacker during Friday night's game and played really well. And so we're happy to see that. J. Ray was out Friday night. And so, those guys step in and make plays. And, there's a lot of reads that goes into that, reading offensive linemen, reading that triangle and stuff like that. And we felt like that the game wasn't too big for them. Both of them got to play week one. So they're kind of getting comfortable, so to speak. And so, big things to come for both of those guys.
Maybe you just needed Terrio just needed some staples in his head to really get him going. So I know he's bouncing back from a little bit of injury, but even came back in that game. So those are good ones right there. And then the unsung hero of the week award. Everybody always looks forward to that. What do you have for us?
Yeah, so unsung this week, I think this person could probably win it every week and probably should, is going to be our basically the person who leads our building, and Bryn Volkmer. She is, I think a lot of people say that out loud, but she knows the inner workings of almost everything that goes on. And, we meet every Monday morning, and she's reaching out to the admin and things, getting ready for the tickets and the policies to go into the stadiums and the times and where you park and the directions and all that. And then she flips gears and we're doing academic all state. And then she flips gears and she's helping us with the roster. And then she's helping me with finishing up a fundraiser and just all the stuff. And she is very knowledgeable about what goes on. Not only with football, but with our whole athletic program. And this place could not run without her. I don't know what I'd do. I guess I'd turn my keys in. So she is super, super valuable, and we're so appreciative of her.
That's great. Bryn is a good friend of the program, friend of mine. And I'm glad to know Bryn has a hand in the roster now. Now, she may be making more decisions than we even think. So
she should.
That is a good one. All right, so as we talked about, big game coming up against Flower Mound. Hopefully a lot of people travel over there. The weather is broken. We've got some beautiful nights ahead, okay? Surely no lightning. We can't do this like 5 times in a row, right? You got to catch a break in that regard. And, boy, you were right. I was just looking at some of those scores, 28-21 overtime loss to Bowie. And then that against the one at Wiley, they had the big win. So they're very, very capable team. Barron Sampson, I don't think I mentioned him, is their quarterback. And so this will be a really good quarterback matchup. And you said something about coaches not wanting to lose their minds on the sideline. I'm glad you've never had a coach who's done that. I really am. But I was at a Baylor SMU game, which ended with a very nice result, at least from my point of view. And you've never heard it. It's funny. Sometimes you think, well, how do folks behave at different levels, right? Every level. And the SMU defensive coaches, we just happened to be right next to them in the press box. And it was pretty, yeah. When you lose a game 48-45, you're going to have some interesting reactions up there.
Yeah.
But that was kind of fun to be able to hear what they were saying over there.
No doubt. I think perspective from a coach is pretty, you put to bed a Friday night game, and then immediately Saturday morning, coaches are up here at 7 a.m. and they're starting to work. And then, they work all day Saturday and into Saturday evening, and then Sunday, and you start to practice it. And by the time you get to Thursday and Friday, you've kind of seen that game plan go in. So there's a lot of emotional investment that have went into that, and you really haven't let any of it out yet. And so some of those moments that you're talking about in those press box, and don't get me wrong, some people handle it better than others. And then when the game's over, it's kind of like, you're spent, and then you don't have very much time, and then you got to go on to the next game. And so I've been a part of some of those colorful boxes before. I kind of like to stay in my own lane and call it plays. I know Paz has went up there the last couple years, and it's really it's made for a lot better sideline, if you know what I mean.
I mean, I think the fans miss seeing him down there because there's a lot of emotion, a lot of excitement that he brings, and a lot of juice. But yeah, sometime I will just go sit kind of right around that room and just see what's coming out of there. But I'm sure he's pretty patient and everything, and just offering very positive feedback.
Yeah, I don't flip over on the defensive side too much. There is from time to time I will, but mostly it's, I'm on the offensive side. And then whenever we don't have the ball, guys are going through video and we're kind of having conversations back and forth about adjustments and things we need to make and stuff like that. In our RSD, in our press box, the offense and defense are in two different rooms, which is pretty common. But you'll have from time to time, like when we go to Jesuit, and some of those places, they'll be in the same room. And so you can hear a little bit more of what's going on because the offensive guys have their headphones on. So you can hear a little echo of what's going on the defensive side. But they do a great job. And I think it just gives him a little bit more of that perspective where you can kind of take the emotion out of it. And then the X's and O's is the big part of it.
All right. Well, it is the Boneyard podcast. And, one more thing that was kind of nice. I think your penalties are down. I think you only had like maybe 4 penalties for 41 yards or something like that. I think that's moving in the right direction. Early in the season is when guys are calling a lot. They're trying to reinforce new things. And so I think the earlier you can start kind of wiping out some of that, it's probably an effective deal.
Yeah, I think early we talk a lot about pre-snap penalties. Obviously we're going to motion and we're going to bump and we're going to, reset protections and things of that nature. And so offensive linemen having to sit in there and listen to all that sometimes. I was watching last night. I was watching the end of the game. My son and I were there watching Buffalo, and I was like, "There's no way they're going to come back." You can see Josh Allen almost checking. They're in a hurry up tempo mindset, and he's basically checking everything at the line. So the lineman really got to sit in there, and listen to all those changes. And I think the other part of it is special teams. God, there's just so many scenarios that's hard to be able to put your kids in all of those different situations. Like the other night, we had a big punt return, and guys are giving great effort, and you get a blindside block, right? Well, you obviously you can't hit somebody when they're not looking, and the kid says, "Well, coach, I thought he was looking. He's not looking." And so to go back through that and kind of show the video, show what that means. I mean, hitting somebody in the back's a penalty, but when somebody is not looking, you hit them right here, that's a penalty as well, and the change possession like that. And so
you used to celebrate those. If you think about it, growing up,
we used to be on big hits and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, and again, it's just a rule change, over the last, I don't know however many years. And so it's just one of those aspects where it's a teachable moment. You want to teach, it's just like, if the ball's in front of you, you don't need to block. We don't need to block if the ball's in front of us, stuff like that. So just stuff that you can improve on week in, week out when you're talking about video study.
All right. And I did want to mention, and our historian was looking into some things, and the Flower Mound is an ancient Indian burial ground, but pioneers settled in around 1840, and the growth came with the completion of Grapevine Lake. Coach, settle in here. And then the building of DFW International Airport. Marcus and North Park developer Raymond Nasher would try to establish Flower Mound Newtown a planned development, much like George Mitchell did with the Woodlands north of Houston. You know the Woodlands. But the locals fought the master plan, and reality couldn't fight off the inevitable growth. And there you go, sort of some of the stuff that happens between, and of course, Flower Mound and I remember Marcus more than I do Flower Mound because Q Britton used to be the coach there, the late, great Q Britton, who was a star player at SMU back in the day and would have played at SMU probably in the late 1960s. So those are fun. And in our throwback game, I always like thinking about some of our Lake Highlands graduates, that Flower Mound matchup from just a few years ago. Noel Whitehead, who great player for you guys. And then this Shalom Peter, who's now at CSU Pueblo. What's that, Colorado State University of Pueblo? He had a field goal in that game. He was one of the few place kickers who could also just light you up on defense and was really I guess that's a two-way player. I don't know how you call it that. But and then Trip Holly in that game, big-time 75-yard drive, capped off by a 15-yard pass to Deontay Dean, and who's at Abilene Christian now. And it's just we've talked about some of those kids. Fun to know. Some of them are playing college ball. Some of them, like Ian Mowdy, are in a fraternity, probably just killing it on the intramural fields. And he had a 10-yard touchdown pass in that game. So his mom walking in the neighborhood last night, in fact. Then Myron McGee had an interception. He's at Columbia now. And then a 28-yard touchdown in that game that put the Cats up 24-10 to Leland, Germany, now at Eastern Kentucky. And one of my favorite players, and I know one of yours, that was on third down, Shung Leon had a big interception in that game, and a field goal by Shalom put it to 27-10 in that game. So that was a 27-17 win, September of 2022. So there's a little throwback for you from our resident historian.
Fun to hear some of those names. I got the pleasure to coach guys like Noel Whitehead and Leland, Germany, and Deontay Dean, and Ian Mowdy, and Shalom Peter, and all those guys. And to hear they're doing well, and whatever they're doing right now, that's fun for a coach.
Yeah, Mowdy somewhere questioning Sarkeesian as we speak. It is the Boneyard Podcast for Cory Campbell. I am Matt Mosley. We'll see you soon at the Boneyard, but let's go watch the Flower Mound game on Friday night. See you soon.